أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقدموا بين يدي الله ورسوله واتقوا الله إن الله سميع عليم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا ترفعوا أصواتكم فوق صوت النبي ولا تجهروا له بالقول كجهر بعضكم لبعض أن تحبط أعمالكم وأنتم لا تشعرون. إن الذين يغضون أصواتهم عند رسول الله أولئك الذين امتحن الله قلوبهم للتقوى لهم مغفرة وأجر عظيم. إن الذين ينادونك من وراء الحجرات أكثرهم لا يعقلون. ولو أنهم صبروا حتى تخرج إليهم لكان خيرا لهم والله غفور رحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن جاءكم فاسق بنبأ فتبينوا أن تصيبوا قوما بجهالة فتصبحوا على ما فعلتم نادمين. واعلموا أن فيكم رسول الله لو يطيعكم في كثير من الأمر لعنتم ولكن الله حبب إليكم الإيمان وزينه في قلوبكم وكره إليكم الكفر والفسوق والعصيان أولئك هم الراشدون فضلا من الله ونعمه والله عليم حكيم. وإن طائفتان من المؤمنين اقتتلوا فأصلحوا بينهما فإن بغت إحداهما على الأخرى فقاتلوا التي تبغي حتى تفيء إلى أمر الله فإن فاءت فأصلحوا بينهما بالعدل وأقسطوا إن الله يحب المقسطين. إنما المؤمنون إخوة فأصلحوا بين أخويكم واتقوا الله لعلكم ترحمون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا يسخر قوم من قوم عسى أن يكونوا خيرا منهم ولا نساء من نساء عسى أن يكن خيرا منهن ولا تلمزوا أنفسكم ولا تنابزوا بالألقاب بئس الاسم الفسوق بعد الإيمان ومن لم يتب فأولئك هم الظالمون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اجتنبوا كثيرا من الظن إن بعض الظن إثم ولا تجسسوا ولا يغتب بعضكم بعضا أيحب أحدكم أن يأكل لحم أخيه ميتا فكرهتموه واتقوا الله إن الله تواب رحيم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Surah Al-Hujurat is known as a surah that is dealing with three things mainly. The first one has to do with human behavior. The second, which is also connected to what we said, is about ethics. And we'll see in many places, in many verses, the differences between an ethical behavior and sometimes the rules. So there is a difference here, and we just got it, and this is why I wanted to stop with the 15th verse where the Arabs, the Bedouins, were saying, we are believing, and say, no, you're not believing, you're not believers. Faith is not in your heart, you are submitting, you are that outward submission. It's not exactly what is expected by God. God is looking at your heart, as the hadith is saying. The Prophet ﷺ, Allah is not looking at your outward, at your body, at your face. He's looking at your heart, and face is where you will come back to the heart. So it has to do with ethics, and then also something which is step by step. The perception of the way we have to deal with al-adab, which is this kind of respect towards God, towards the Prophet ﷺ, and towards ourselves, and at the end towards our brothers and sisters in Islam as well as in humanity. And you can see the progression. We'll follow all this while dealing with the verses. What is interesting, and this is the second point that we have to remember as an introduction, is that these verses were revealed, and there is almost a consensus on this, the 9th year of Al-Hijrah, meaning it's a revelation coming at the end of all the revelations. And it might be quite important for us to remember that, in fact, after almost 22 years of revelation, Allah is sending a revelation verses saying, look, be careful. Don't misunderstand the very essence of your religion. It has to do with ethics. It has to do with the way you deal with yourself, the way you deal with the Prophet ﷺ, and the way you deal with your brothers and sisters. So to come back to the ethical dimension of Islam after 22 years means that it's exactly our position. It's the position of anyone who is studying Islam. We got the essence, we know the rules, and Allah is coming back to us, don't forget the meaning. So you know the rules, and this is what the Bedouins were saying, the Arabs in the desert were saying, we are Muslims, we are believers. Say, be careful. It might be that outwardly you are, but inwardly there is something which is missing. And what is going to be the key? The key is going to be your behavior. The secret is something which is Allah knows, people don't see, but you know. So what Allah knows and what you know, people may not know about it in your heart, but it's visible through very simple things, and we can see this. So if we come to the first verses here, where we have something which is quite interesting. When, for example, we have أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقدموا بين يدي الله ورسوله. Here there is something which is said. If you go back to the Tafsir, to Ibn Kathir al-Qurtubi, you will find, and Al-Razi is stressing on that, you can see something which is important. The companions of the Prophet and some of the people around him were looking at things, and they were saying, we should have a revelation on this because this should be forbidden or this should be acceptable. So they were expecting from God to say something about what they were thinking, as if, as believers, they were getting the truth and expecting from God to confirm what they were thinking. And this revelation is saying, no, that's not the way. You should not talk before God is talking. So the first dimension here is in something which is natural. When you follow the truth, you can be expecting the truth to confirm what you feel is just be cautious with whom first. And the first level here is something which is very subtle in your heart, is do you al-adab with God, al-adab ma'allah, which is wait for him to talk and don't ask too much. لا تسألوا عن أشياء أن تبدى لكم تسؤكم. لا تسألوا عن أشياء is don't ask about things. So there is a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala which is based on something which is coming from your heart. And what they were doing here is sometimes very close to the Prophet ﷺ, expecting Allah to confirm what they think and saying to the people, the believers, it's not for you to decide. So the deeper you believe, the more you are cautious with what you are expecting from God and not the other way around. Which in fact, as a teaching, is something which is essential for all of us. Because it's not because you believe in the truth that the truth belongs to you. It's not this. You belong to the truth. Truth doesn't belong to you. And this relationship means it's not something which is very subtle in the relationship with God. And it starts with this. So you have the first dimension. The first dimension is how do you have to behave with God? And straight after this with the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ is, and look, there is something here which is very important. One of the words that is coming very often in this surah is a taqwa. And taqwa, very often in traditional translation, we say it's fearing God, this piety of fearing God. In the translation that you have here is be mindful. And it's deeper than that. It's not fear, because fear, it's not giving. The Prophet ﷺ said once, ها هنا التقوى, ها هنا التقوى. This, وتزودوا خير الزاد التقوى. So in your journey, in the pilgrimage, but the journey of life, the best provision is taqwa. And at the end of this passage, we also have إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. أتقاكم. So it's not fear. It's something which has to do with a kind of reverence, love, and fear out of love, and love out of this fear. It's a loving reverence. It's more than mindful. Mindful is the mind. A taqwa is the heart. It's the heart when you have your mind open to God's presence. There is something which has to do with this being mindful, but with your heart. So this loving reverence towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is something which is essential. It's very difficult to get this. Let me tell you something. Once we had recently a discussion with scholars, and we're talking about a taqwa. And because there will be no ethics, no social behavior if there is no taqwa for us. It's coming from there. It's coming from this very deep understanding. And you have it in the first verse, وَاتَّقُوا meaning be aware, be mindful. Get this loving reverence towards him, because if you love him, you don't act like this with him. It's not only with your mind, it's with yourself, the deep dimension of this relationship. And it has to do with love, because there is something which is the relationship that Allah is Ar-Rahman. Ar-Rahman is Silat Ar-Rahim, is what we used to say, this kind of love that it's coming from very deep in your being. Which is why, for example, many psychologists today are saying, and we know this now, there is something which is specific in the relationship between the mother and the child, the baby. It's coming from within. Ar-Rahman is something which is coming from this. And what he's expecting us to get is a taqwa is remember me, not with your mind, but with something which is as deep as what you get in the other way. When it comes from Allah. This relationship, everything which has to do with Ar-Rahman, with Allah, who Ar-Rahman, the way he's talking about love, the way he's talking about Al-Rahmah, this compassion, is something which is essential in everything which has to do with this. Why? Because this will be the secret, in fact. You are not going to change your behavior if you don't get this from the very beginning. What taqullah mean? Just get this relationship, this adab, which is coming from your heart, from your mind, from yourself. And this is a process. It's not something that you can just, I got it and that's it. No, it's going to come. The more you behave, the more you look at yourself, the more you control, the more you master, the deeper this is going to be in your heart. So it's going from outward to inward through what? through the way you are going to behave. And this is why the hadith is saying, الإيمان يزيد وينقص. Your faith can increase and decrease. ويصدقه العمل. What is going to confirm what the way your faith is going to increase is the way you behave. So through your behavior that you will get this. All the people are saying, you know what, I'm going to go to the Sufi trend, I'm going to pray during the night. That's not the point. The point is not to pray, you pray during the night. If you are not acting in the light of this relationship to God, you are not going to get it deeper. So paradoxically, acting is deepening, or behaving is the way you are going. So this is why you got to, and this is from where you understand what the Prophet ﷺ, when he said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِيُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ, I came to complete the good character, meaning what? By this and through this behavior, you will get this deep understanding of what taqwa is. And we had a discussion with scholars, and the Sheikh al-Raisuni was saying, in fact, the secret of everything is taqwa. So a medical doctor, anyone should have this taqwa. So I asked him, is taqwa a universal concept? I said, yes. And we have two shuyukh, one Sheikh al-Qaradawi was saying, no, taqwa is out of belief. And he said, no, there is one taqwa which is for us as Muslims, the way we are connected to God. But for people who are denying God, taqwa is consciousness. Is this kind of moral understanding, moral awareness that something is important, which is very important. That you can, he was of the opinion that you can use taqwa throughout the beyond our faith, and the Sheikh al-Qaradawi was saying no, it's an Islamic concept. And in fact, you can see that in some attitude with people who have no God, but they have this moral consciousness. There is something which is deep in the way they are dealing. And it's not only coming from their mind. There is something which is coming from their mind and from their heart. They have this deep, and this is where we can, as Muslims, say, there is something which has to do with al-fitra, which is something which is deep inside, so that we have to discover and come back. If you come to this, the beginning of everything, wattaqullah. Why? Because he knows what you do and what you think and the way you are dealing with this. So I took a long time for that. Inna Allah sami'un alim. Sami'un, he listened. And he listened to what? What you say? No. He listened to, when you say, ma a'lam wa ma lam a'lam. So we are asking Allah to forgive us for things that I know and things that I don't know. Things that I say and things that they are there, but I even said them, but they are with my intention. The problem is that sometimes our intentions are not verbal. And things that we might have, our temptation, are not expressed. And you know that in contemporary psychology is something, or linguistic, there is something which is very important, is that sometimes the fact that you use words gives reality to things that are in your mind and in yourself, which is also sometimes, which is very important. So between what you think and what you say, there is something which is in between non-verbal reality, which is something which is important for us. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ means and touch this dimension. So just to make it at the beginning clear here that what we are talking about is this reality of the relationship with God, the intention, and this loving reverence towards Him. This is the secret. When you talk, when you deal with Him, when we deal with Allah, this is something which is the beginning. And then come a second level, and you will see that we are going now, we are progressing for very small details to something which is from you and your heart and the Prophet, ﷺ, your heart and the community, your heart and humanity. And then we come back to the source. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. It's like a circle. And very often in the Qur'an, if you follow some of the verses, you can see something which is very important. Because it has to do with a dhikr, in fact. A dhikr is coming back. Okay? A dhikr is remembering. Remembrance is you come back. In the Qur'an, many of the qasas al-Qur'an, the stories of the Qur'an, are coming back. Okay? Many of the vision or many of the themes and topics are coming back. We start with your heart, we go to your behavior with yourself, behaving with your brothers and sisters, behaving with humanity, and come back to the self. This circle is something which has to do with the way we think, in fact. It has to do with the dhikr, if you come to this. And then, for example, this is for some verses, and if you look at the whole revelation, you can see it's coming back, always coming back. It's a journey to the source. You go and you come back, always. And this is exactly what you have here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking us step by step, and then say, okay, the best people, the best human being is the one who has this taqwa, which we started with just with the first verse. Now, if we go through the way the verse here is constructed, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا ترفعوا أصواتكم فوق صوت النبي. And this is also something that we need to understand very often when we do the tafsir. There are things that are known in ulum al-Qur'an as Asbab al-Nuzul. Asbab al-Nuzul, reasons for this revelation. And in fact, what happened is that Umar and Abu Bakr, in fact, Abu Bakr and Umar, radiallahu anhuma, they were talking about an issue, and especially choosing someone who was representing a tribe, and Abu Bakr chose someone, and Umar chose another one. And he told him, you are doing this just to contradict me. And they started an argument in front of the Prophet ﷺ. And their voices. What is very important here is to get it very deep here. These are the two companions that are the closest to the Prophet ﷺ. One is his friend, and the other one was so close that the Prophet ﷺ asked Allah, please make one of two become Muslim, because they are going to save the community. Abu Jahl or Al-Faruq, Umar ibn al-Khattab. These are the two who were disputing, and you have a verse in the Qur'an saying these two made a mistake. And what was this mistake? They were shouting. They were shouting and raising their voice in a way which was not ethical. In fact, they were the best companions outward, but they can make mistake inward. Ethically speaking, they had the wrong attitude. And this is why afterward it is said that Umar ibn al-Khattab was speaking always very, very, how do you say that? Yes, exactly. Always trying to be very cautious. Why? Because there is something in this verse which is important. In fact, there is a hadith saying that sometimes you can say a word that you think it's nothing, and this could open the doors of paradise. And one word, you think it's nothing, and it can open the doors of hellfire. What does it mean? What Ibn Abbas was saying, radiallahu anhuma, he was saying, you are doing things today. When we were with the Prophet ﷺ, these things were big for us. It's just, in fact, meaning that in history we are very quickly used to things, and we think it's normal because we are used to them. There is something here which is important, is the way you are talking, the way you are speaking can destroy everything in your action. Look at the verse, the way it's constructed here, when it is said, لا ترفعوا صوتكم فوق صوت النبي ولا تجهروا له بالقول كجهر بعضكم لبعض أن تهبط أعمالكم. It's all your actions could be destroyed. Meaning, mind the details. Mind something which is the way you talk, and master. امسك عليك لسانك, said the Prophet ﷺ, and it means master your tongue. Be careful. Why? Because in fact your tongue is revealing what? The state of your heart. التقوى. Is the way you are with God is the way you talk, and the way you talk is revealing the way you are with Him. In fact, your words are in fact the signs showing your heart, the way to your heart. It's the way you talk. And this is why, for example, when we say a tongue that is reciting the Qur'an should be very careful about the way you talk to people, you talk to yourself, and you talk to God, the way you talk. Mas imsik alayka lisanak, said the Prophet ﷺ, meaning that with your tongue sometimes you can end up doing the worst. And why is it important? Because your tongue is the easiest way to act. It's so simple to talk, and it's so heavy. It's so heavy. So these details that we have at the beginning is something which has to do with the relationship that we have with something which is simple to say. And remember, there is another hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, كلمتان خفيفتان على اللسان حبيبتان إلى الرحمن. So there are two words, very, 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 very easy, very light, but they are loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning that something which is very easy could be loved by Allah, and something that could be very easy to say that can be rejected, and you have to be very careful. So after 22 years of revelation, Allah is calling the community and say, be careful. It's not about the rules, it's about the details, it's about the heart, it's about the taqwa. This is the secret. All the rules are not going to protect you, and even the way you talk can destroy the way you behave. Because if you think it's just enough to behave, be careful. And for us as Muslims, when we talk today about our community, divisions and all that, it's coming from where? It's coming first by the way we talk. And the way we talk is revealing what? The way we think. And the way we talk, it's about, accepting, for example, diversity, accepting different of opinions, accepting, it's all going to be expressed. And this is also saying something about our heart. And you have it from the very beginning, وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَشْعُرُونَ. So it can destroy all your action while you are not aware of that. Because you think that you respect the rules, but so there is something in linguistic, when talking is doing. There is a book called like When Talking is Doing. We completely agree with this. I said that's exactly it. Talking is doing, and sometimes the way you talk is even destroying anything else that you are doing. And for us, the starting point of this journey is, don't expect God to speak the way you want him to speak. And don't talk the way you want to talk to the Prophet ﷺ. So the way you listen and the way you talk. These are the two dimensions at the beginning. The way you listen to God, wait for him to tell you. And the way you talk to the Prophet, mind yourself, mind the way you have to talk in this. Now, if we go further in إن الذين يغضون أصواتهم عند رسول الله أولئك الذين امتحن الله قلوبهم للتقوى. Again, التقوى. So the people who are being very careful in the way they talk in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ. And it means here something which has to do with the reverence. Many scholars were saying the way the companions had to be with the Prophet ﷺ is also the way we have to be with the scholars, with people of knowledge. Now, be careful, because what also is important with Umar and Abu Bakr, radiallahu anhuma, there is something which is important. Be careful with the way you talk. It doesn't mean that you don't have to express your thoughts. In many situations, they disagreed on the prisoners, the way we were to talk with the prisoners. In the way, for example, Umar, after Sulh al-Hudaybiyah, he was so upset and not happy with the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet didn't tell him, you are wrong and keep quiet. He accepted the fact that he was not happy. He accepted the fact that he had an opinion. So there is something which we have to be very careful. There is a difference between the way you talk and the fact that you think. You have the right to think, but be careful the way you express your thoughts. So for us, it's important even in this relationship we have with authority, because this is something which is important. If you don't take this and you don't take the whole picture with the authority of the Prophet ﷺ, asking Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, asking Umar ibn al-Khattab, what were their opinions, and respecting their opinions, he said there is something which is different. You have the right to express yourself. You have the right for your opinions. Now be careful the way you express them, which is very important in anything that we have to do in our relationship to authority. Is to be respectful doesn't mean to blindly follow. That's not what is said here. It's not. It's not this kind of respect that sometimes we have in our community. So, look, we have to be very careful. No, there is a way that, yes, we have to respect and adab. It's important. And you can have this with your parents. You can have this with people who have knowledge. But once again, in all the situation, you will see that there is a difference between the ethical behavior as to the way you talk and the knowledge as the way what you say and the fact that you have to say this. And it will come later also in this verse. And then the point is, امتحن قلوبهم للتقوى. This is the test. The test of your face, the test of your heart is going to be seen through the way you talk and the way you are going to talk. And this is also something which is the starting point of anything in social ethics. Social ethics is about interpersonal relationship. And the first thing is the way you are going to think and the way you are going to express yourself. So once again, in fact, social ethics is always starting with language, is the way you express. And remember, Allah sent us a book. And He sent us a book, it's communication. Communication, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is starting with the Qur'an, Alif, Lam, Mim, and calling us to this being aware He's going to talk to us, there's something which has to do with al-adab, in the way we listen, in the way we talk. And we have to take it as something which is essential. Once again, it seems to be simple, it's something which is maybe the most difficult thing to experience in our life when it comes to this relationship to God. So, first, al-adab ma'allah, so it's the relationship with God, and then the relationship with the Prophet ﷺ. The way they were talking and sometimes shouting when he was there, and then the way they were calling him, and say, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُنَادُونَكَ مِنْ وَرَاءِ الْحُجُرَاتِ. So in the verse that you have just after this, إن الذين ينادونك من وراء الحجرات أكثرهم لا يعقلون. Meaning here that, and we have this, we know that these were some companions, the way they were talking to the Prophet, sometimes they were not even saying Muhammad Rasulullah, this is Muhammad, and then it's also something which has to do with a kind of behavior. And the kind of behavior is, as much as you have to be patient with Allah, you have to be patient with the Prophet ﷺ, and you have to know the way you are expressing yourself and the way you are talking to him. It's once again based on a second dimension. أَكْثَرَهُمْ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ, meaning they are not thinking about this. There is here something about a lack of awareness and a lack of knowledge. Ethics is based on, the source of ethics is your heart. The control of the ethical behavior will be your mind. And the way you are going to translate ethics in your life is based on knowledge. So you need heart, mind, and knowledge to be able to keep this relationship, the ethical relationship, when it comes to society and when it comes to the relationship to God, to yourself, and to the Prophet ﷺ. And this is why what we have, وَلَوْ أَنَّهُمْ صَبَرُوا حَتَّى تَخْرُجَ إِلَيْهِمْ لَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُمْ وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Look at something else which is coming. Taqwa is coming almost 5 to 6 times in the beginning. And the other side of or the mirroring dimension coming from God is al-Ghafur, Rahim, al-Tawwab. It's always that He's welcoming. So meaning what? Why is it? How do you understand that very often we read the end of the verses very quickly, and Allah is always saying al-Tawwab, al-Ghafur. What does it mean? It means these are ideals that you have to try to reach, but know something that you are not going to succeed. So He's always welcoming. And you will see that Al-Ghafur Rahim. The fact that Allah is always talking about Himself as welcoming means you are going to make mistakes. So this is an objective. So this morality, this social ethics that we need to experience as human beings is something which has to be understood as ideals in our life, and that we are going to make mistakes, and that we have to trust God. There is something which is a trusting things, that the relationship that we have with the divine, with the only one God, is only based on the deeper we go in our heart, the deeper we understand that we need His rahmah, that we need His forgiveness in anything that we are doing. And this is why we have it everywhere. In all the verses that are coming after this, you will find this essential. So we started with God, and then it comes to controlling our tongue, and then it comes to controlling the way we deal with the Prophet ﷺ. And then there is a second step which is important just after this. Which is يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن جاءكم فاسق بنبأ فتبينوا. And we know this verse is when someone who is iniquitous or a troublemaker, as it is, as you have it in your translation here, is fasiq is someone who is a perverted soul, a perverted mind. It's coming with something which is targeting or criticizing or a wrong information. And this in fact happened with the Prophet ﷺ. He sent somebody to get his zakat, and the guy didn't go till the tribe came back saying they don't want to pay. And he was going to prepare, in fact, fighting them because they didn't want to pay. And in fact, it was wrong. So it happened to the Prophet ﷺ. And then what is in this verse is now something which is not with him, it's not with God, it's not with him, is with tribes, is with a community. And what is important here is not only it's important to master your tongue as the way you express, but it's going to be to master, to control your mind as the way you judge. Okay, you control the way you talk, and you control the way you listen. Now it's listening. Before it was the way you talk. Now the way you listen. It's as important to control the way you listen. Why? Because we are all like this. Sometimes we like when there are some information or troubles. We like this. We like this kind of controversial things. Say, oh, why are you talking about this? But we still like it. Okay? So this is why in the Qur'an, isna sam'a. Allah starts with this. Inna sam'a wal basara wal fu'ad. As-sam'a is what is coming from here. Why? Because in fact, the way you talk says something about your heart, but the way you listen, it says something about your heart as well. And you know that the way, it's very easy to listen. Say, oh, I didn't say anything, I was just listening. That's the point. That's the point. Because if you are not here to listen, he's not here to talk. If you are able to say, I'm not listening, I don't want. So this is something which is very important here. It's the way you judge now. But to judge means the way you listen. So there is a progression here is, now you have to check. And how are you going to do this? The way you listen is going to be checked by your heart, and the way you judge is going to be checked by your mind. So once again, you have the three things here. Is, of course, I can be attracted by the way you are going to talk about people by saying bad things. So this is my heart, the temptation of my hearts are there. So you have to check your heart. And then to judge, فَتَبَيَّنُ means check the facts. Check with what? With your mind. So ask and don't judge. So check your heart as the way you listen. Check your mind as the way you judge. So there is here something which is the second step. Ethics is all about this. You want an ethical behavior? Tell me how you talk, how you speak, and how you listen. It's both. And this is where the interpersonal relationship are based in the verses that we have here. Which is important. أن تصيبوا قوما بجهالة فتصبحوا على ما فعلتم نادمين. What is the word which is important here? in order for you not to make a judgment based on what? On ignorance. بجهالة فتصبحوا على ما فعلتم نادمين. Meaning you can't afterward say, I didn't know. To judge out of ignorance is a double mistake. And in fact, what you have to do to check is, as long as you don't know, you don't judge. And when you know, you only judge on what you know. But knowledge is a requirement. So there is, once again, heart, mind, and knowledge are always there in the way you talk and in the way you listen. So knowledge, when you say, Islam is all about knowledge, be careful, it's not only about, the knowledge. No, it's a very simple thing. It's the knowledge, it's a daily life. In your daily life, knowledge is important. So we have to be very careful not to understand that the knowledge we are talking about is the knowledge of, the ulama, the nusus. It's very simple. Our daily life is based on very simple things that we need to know in order to, in the way we speak, in the way we judge the people. All our life is based on this. All our, as soon as we are social human beings, we have to deal with this, and we have to deal with this knowledge. So the basic knowledge of our life, which is important. And then there is something which is important in the verse that is coming afterward. Because وَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ فِيكُمْ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ, and know that there is among you the Prophet ﷺ. And for us today, when you listen to these verses, say, okay, what does it mean? What does it mean? It's what is coming after it. If he was to follow you in what you want, you would lose everything. In fact, all what is coming here is you have to get it right. You are not going to have an ethical behavior if you follow your desires and your instincts. Spirituality is all about discipline. It's all about discipline. But this discipline, and this is rahmatullah, is where? Where is the rahmah here? Why Allah is ar-Rahman ar-Rahim? In fact, because it's coming in the verse just after that. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ حَبَّبَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْإِيمَانِ. In fact, there is a secret here. Yes, it's all about discipline, but remember, deep down in your heart, if you come back to the fitrah, Allah made you love faith. He made you love truth. There is something which you feel good. So be careful. It might be difficult at the surface, but the deeper you go, the better you will be with yourself. In fact, deep down, rahmatullah is you will love truth, you will love faith, and you will love this discipline. Because this is where you have this dignity. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ is based on that. So in fact, it's something which is important. There are two ways. Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that to pray is heavy for the people who have a superficial faith? Why? Because in fact it's heavy if you don't have this faith which is deep. The deeper you are with your faith, the deeper you understand why you have to pray. But at the periphery of your faith, to pray is heavy. At the center of your face, to pray is a necessity. And you understand why it's a necessity. So there is something which is telling us, rahmatullah is to tell you, if you go deep in this, in your heart, if you come back to the fitrah, إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ, coming back to God with this sound heart, if you go to the sound heart, you will understand that this is where things are going to be lighter. This is why you will get that peace. So stay at the periphery, it's going to be difficult. Come at the to the center, and you will find that this is why. And this is why I'll say, وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ, meaning وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ versus what you think it's difficult, وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ حَبَّبَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْإِيمَانِ. And sometimes in some of our practices when we are performing prayer, we can feel this. We are in a state where we don't feel it's heavy. We feel good. And Allah is saying, this is the secret. The secret is Al-fitra, in fact, is calling you back to something which is, if you reconcile yourself with al-fitra, you will find it lighter, deeper, and full of light. This is where you will get that peace. So this is the way we can understand here. ولكن الله حبب إليكم الإيمان وزينه في قلوبكم. وزينه في قلوبكم is something which is another dimension. Never forget that, because some of you are artists here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying وزينه في قلوبكم. He's not talking about face as something which is heavy and ugly. It's about beauty. There is something in our face which has to do with aesthetic. And this is where, for example, we are now creating or doing a Quranic garden in Qatar. And I told them, you know, the secret of a Quranic garden is the secret of faith, is when you reconcile ethics, aesthetics, and knowledge. Aesthetics. ولكن الله حبب إليكم الإيمان. الحب is about وزينه. زينه, it means he beautifies it in your heart. And there is something which has to do with Allahu Jamil yuhibbul Jamal. So our face is not at all about something which is heavy and ugly. It's light and beauty. But it's deep in our face. So the way we look at the world by saying, MashaAllah is beautiful, say, look at your heart, and you will see the deeper you go with your face, the more beautiful you will find this sphere where you are connected to God. So this is the true spirituality. But what does it mean here? What does it mean? It means with what is the opposite? وَكَرَّهَ إِلَيْكُمْ الْكُفْرِ. الْكُفْرِ is when your heart is veiled. الْفُسُوقُ وَالْعِسْيَانِ. Look, al-Iman is here opposed to al-Isyan. What is al-Isyan? Is when you disobey. So the ugly side is obedience, is when you come with the right behavior. And what is وَكَرَّهَ, what is something that is hateful and that you are rejecting, is this kind of disobedience. So it's the opposite of beauty. Here is not something which is ugly, is the state in your behavior which is the disobedience towards God, not respecting, not listening, doing what He is asking you. And this is why just after this, he's saying something about who are the people who will experience this. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الرَّاشِدُونَ. الرَّاشِدُونَ, the people who are following the right path. الرَّاشِدُونَ are the people who are doing this. Who are the Rashidun? The Rashidun are the people who are mastering, who are following the beauty, who are obeying, who are coming to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through this obedience from the heart, from the mind, and with their knowledge, as opposed to al-kufr wal-fusuq. Al-fusuq is perversity, is the pervert soul, and al-isyan is the one who are the people who are disobeying. So there is something which is the opposite side. Al-Rashidun are the people who are mastering, who are disciplined in the way they are dealing with their. So all this, all what we are talking about here are the conditions for us to be able to do what is coming after this in our interpersonal relationship. First, for all of us, is the way we are with God, Azza wa Jal, the way we are with the Prophet, the way we are with the way we talk, with the way we listen, is going to give us the dignity and this taqwa, which is the very essence. And this is when we are equipped with this, by working with this, that we can now deal with our brothers and sisters in Islam and in humanity. So once again, get it right. It came after 22 years of revelation, with people who knew everything. They knew all the fiqh that they knew it better than you. All the fiqh, everything, pray, fast, all this was new. Allah is coming with one verse, say, stop it now. This is where you have to start again. And this is where, even the Bedouins following the Prophet are saying, you're not going to teach us Islam. No, I'm going to teach you Iman. Iman, which is the light of Islam. Because you can be Muslim without being mu'min. This is what he said at the end. Be careful if you claim that you are mu'min by only being Muslim. It might be that you are Muslim without understanding what it is to be a mu'min. So this is the end of the passage that we have. But just to go a bit, I'm taking too much time. I have to. 10? MashaAllah, that's good. I thought that I was. Okay. And then something which is once again insisting on something which we need to insist on this, because very often the way we deal with our rules, the way we deal with our limits, it's as if it's heavy, it's difficult. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always repeating, فَضْلًا مِنَ اللَّهِ وَنِعْمَةً. It's a ni'mah, it's a gift. All this, it's a gift. But be careful. At the periphery, it's a heavy burden. At the center, it's a gift. But you need to be disciplined. You have to look at yourself and to look at the three dimensions. The state of your heart, the way you understand things, and it has to do with your mind, use knowledge, once again, with your heart. So we need to be very positive about this. And this is why when you say, وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ حَبَّبَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْإِيمَانِ, means in fact that's true. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put something in us which is very positive. It's a call, in fact. And you can see this with people even who don't believe in God. That you can see that in the way they are dealing with ethics, in the way they are serving, there is something which is very positive deep down, very positive. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala it's calling us to something which is positive and has to do with, once again, ethics is not easy, but make it beautiful. Make it beautiful out of your way of dealing with him. And then comes the dimensions that we are talking about when it comes about something which is going to happen. All this is the ideal. And now also, there is a step after this is, what if two groups of mu'mineen are going to struggle and to fight? وَإِن طَائِفَتَانِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ اقْتَتَلُوا. It's not اقتتلوا means it has to do with death. It has to do with killing one another. Al-qital has to be with armed conflict. It's not about jihad. It's one occurrence of jihad is al-qital. وَإِن طَائِفَتَانِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ اقْتَتَلُوا. What do you have to do? With all what you have in your heart, all what you have, try to make peace. Try to reconcile them. But at one point, and this is the starting point with all what we are doing, the starting point of your behavior is the final stage is that peace that we are talking about. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ حَبَّبَ إِلَيْكُمْ mean الحب here is to be at peace with God and peace with yourself. What is going to happen in your life is people struggling, people fighting each other. And when it comes to this, the first attitude with your heart is to make peace, is to promote peace. Why? Because this is the higher objective of everything in Islam. Islam is all about peace. And for years, when I was asked and I was writing about Islam, I say, you know what? Everything in Islam is about justice. And it's when I wrote the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ said I was completely wrong. In fact, justice is a condition of peace. And justice is not the higher objective of Islam. It's just a condition. And in fact, even when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us this supplication in the Qur'an, Allahumma zalamna anfusana, we have been unjust with ourselves. It means what? We cannot get peace by being unjust with ourselves. So no peace with injustice. And this is why we can put it, when we talk about Palestine, when we say, okay, no justice, no peace. Meaning justice is a condition of peace. But peace is the final hope for all of us. Here, there is something which is try to make peace. And then, وَإِن بَغَتْ إِحْدَهُمَا عَلَى الْأُخْرَى mean if there is one group that is transgressing and oppressing the other, what is going to be your parameter? What is going to be your reference? The reference is going to be your principle. So there is something in our way of dealing with the ethical dimension is ethics is based on principles. Be careful. Ethics is based on principles, and in between the principles and the ethical behavior, you will have legislation. But be careful. It's not legislation without principles. It's principles first, and legislation or the law should translate the principles. So we have a legal system to translate what are the principles. The principle of justice, the norm as a value, justice is a reference, and then you have to translate this into reality. But your reference is going to be justice. And this is why some of the scholars were saying, and you know that, for example, for you living in Britain, for the men, some were asking, can I be involved in the British Army and the American Army? And some of the scholars, and especially in the Middle East, the scholars were saying you can't. Why? Because you are going to be sent in Afghanistan, sent in Iraq, and you are going to kill other Muslims. So it's prohibited. Here you have a verse, and in the Qur'an, وَإِن طَائِفَتَانِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ الْمُؤْمِنِ in the Qur'an are the Muslims. Al-mu'min is a Muslim, is the one who is believing. And here we have a verse saying it's going to happen. You are going to. And what is going to be the parameter is justice. If you have to take a stand, if you have to choose, you will be on the side of who are the people who are promoting justice versus the people who are transgressing or oppressing. Even with your own brothers. And you know the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ saying, "Insur akhak zaliman aw madluma." Help your brother when he is right or wrong. And one of the companions said, how am I going to help my brother when he's wrong? And said, prevent him from doing wrong. So there is something which is an active brotherhood. And the active brotherhood is based on principle. So it's not, you know, you are my brother, I'm accepting. This is not what is said here. It's exactly the opposite. Active and proactive brotherhood means I'm going to be with you in the name of our common brotherhood, in the name of our Islam. I will be on your side if you're right, but you will find me against you if you are wrong. And you have to take a stand with your brothers. So what does it mean? Don't idealize peace. We are all brothers and sisters. It's all going. No. Allah is starting by telling you, make peace with Allah. Make peace with your Prophet ﷺ. Be peaceful and master yourself. But no, straight away you enter into your community, and the first thing that he's mentioning in the community is al-qital. I said, this is why you are going to use that. Now you have to use all what we said, the way you talk, the way you are going to listen, the way you are acting. That's it. This is it. We start with qital. وَإِن طَائِفَتَانِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ اقْتَتَلُوا. He comes to personal relationship after this by telling us the principle of everything in your life should be based on justice. Because there will be no peace between you without the first principle is justice. And then we are coming to the details of this relationship. I have to finish. Huh? So, so this is the verse which is very important because it says two things for us. First, it could happen that Muslims are going to fight against each other, and the principle for us, it will be justice. And then if you want to deal with your brothers and sisters, instead of looking at them, yes, look at yourself. Which type of presence are you going to have within the community? And you have to be equipped with all what we said before, the way you talk. How are you going to talk with someone who is unjust? The way, for example, you have this أفضل الجهاد كلمة حق أمام سلطان جائر. The best jihad is a word of truth in front of a tyrant. What does it mean? How are you going to do that? By being disciplined before. You need all what we said before to be able to face the tyrants. So there is a process here which is so important for all of us. So we can't just sit down and being worried about the fact that our community is divided. Our community is divided. Our community will face conflicts. The question is, who are the people who are equipped with their heart, with their mind, and with their knowledge to be able to listen to what should be listened to talk the right way, and to be active in the way they are going to make peace and to stand for justice, to be able to face the unjust people even among or within the community. Having said that, and we carry on quite quickly, what is important, once again, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ أَخَوَيْكُمْ. We keep on repeating this. We are brothers and sisters in Islam. The verse here is telling us something. Al-ukhuwa is not something which is a state of affairs that we can just claim, you are my brothers and you are my brothers and sisters in Islam. فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ أَخَوَيْكُمْ means, why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying just this, just after saying you are all brothers and sisters, He says, فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ أَخَوَيْكُمْ. So make peace, meaning we are all brothers and sisters, but peace among us is not something which is acquired. It's something that we have to struggle. It's a jihad of brotherhood. There is something which is you have to struggle. You have to be active within the community. فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ أَخَوَيْكُمْ, in the name of your brotherhood and facing the conflicts and the potential conflict. So there is something which is in these verses, we understand that we cannot idealize our brotherhood. We should stop with this. And one of the most important challenges for the Muslims is to stop idealizing things that are not. They are ideals, they are goals, they are not effective. And it happened with whom? At the beginning of the surah we are talking about whom? Abu Bakr as-Siddiq wa Umar. The people who were with the Prophet, in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ, they were struggling and fighting and shouting, and we come now, after 15th century, say, you are my brother, you are my sister, everything should be okay. No, it's not. That's just exactly the opposite. By dreaming our presence in this world, it's counterproductive. It's not the way we have to do. And it starts with, no, it's going to be, it has to do with war, it has to do with fighting, it has to do with talking the wrong way. So having said that now, and I will come to the end here of this, once again, which word that you have? وَاتَّقُوا. Once again, it has to do with your heart. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ, meaning it's going to happen. So have this loving reverence and know لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ is going to happen, and Allah, hope that Allah is going to show mercy about what you are going to do. So it's an ongoing struggle. So within the community, it's an ongoing struggle. Look, you know, all this is about what? Within al-qawm, isn't it? Just after this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ إِنَّا خَلَقْنَاكُم مِّن ذَكَرٍ وَأُنثَى وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. After this, he's talking about tribes and clans in order for you to know each other. But all what he said before is about what is happening within one. You get that? It's yes, you have to struggle this knowledge to know each other, but know that you have to deal with all these divisions within. So it's within, it's not ideal, it's not tribe, it's not going to be as easy as that. It's saying within you have to deal with ethics, you have to deal with patience, you have to know how to listen, you have to know how to talk within. And with the others, you have to learn. You have to get this knowledge of the other. So ethics to deal with your own people, knowledge to deal with the people outside. And this ethics of knowledge also is something which is important. So we should not idealize the fact that, you know, we are from the same community, it's going to be very simple. These are things that are not realistic. It's not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying after 22 years of this so idealistic community that we had and that we are, you know, celebrating. They were dealing with all that. And this was the daily life of the Prophet ﷺ. He was to deal with this. He was dealing with people who were judging. He was dealing with people who were rejecting. He was dealing with people who were loving him and fighting one another. And this is where ethics is coming as something which is important. And if you go through all what is coming afterward is expanding, is within the community between Muslims, and then لا يسخر قوم من قوم and لا يسخر النساء. And this is where some scholars were saying, Allah is talking here about Nisa and women because they are the more inclined to do that. So as if there is something which is quite interesting in neurosciences now and what we know, which is, yes, the first he's talking about qawm, that we have to be very cautious not to come with general judgment. So as much as we have to be cautious with personal judgment, we have to be cautious with overall judgment. And it means here, be careful, never talk about black people, never talk about Algerian, never talk about Egyptian, never talk about British, never talk about American. This is unacceptable, ethically speaking. لا يسخر قوم من قوم means you can never talk about one society by saying, even if there is one people who is good in, or one man and one woman who is good in this, you cannot generalize. It's prohibited. لا يسخر قوم من قوم means be careful in the way you are treating people. You cannot just judge a community as it is. Be careful about this. And we have to suspend our judgment by not generalizing our judgment. We have to be very cautious with this. And then nisa'un min nisa'in, there is something that we know now in I'm always repeating this because it's quite important, is the way you talk sometimes very quickly. And you have this in Surah Yusuf about the woman around the Aziz, who were talking about, you know, the woman saying she did something wrong, which is interesting. Why expressing now and in this situation women more than men beyond the qawm? And there is something that we know today about the relationship that we have with talking, with the way we can talk. And in fact, all what we said about men and women in neurosciences is showing now that it's not as simple as that when we say, for example, that men are less sensitive than women. And in fact, all what was studied over the last 5-6 years now, we have even more results on this, is that to show that men are more emotional than women. But in fact, they talk less. And women are less emotional, in fact, than what we think, but they talk more, which is interesting. But it means here that there is something that we can find in many hadiths, and here even in the Qur'an, is that be careful with too quick expression of what you feel. And then it's also something which has to do with men and women, qawm, the community, the number, and sometimes the way we can talk about others is something that we have to be very careful. And also to understand, عَسَىٰ أَن يَكُونُوا خَيْرًا مِنْكُمْ, it means they can be better than you. Better not in what is visible, but better in what Allah knows, which is a taqwa, which is also this dimension of the secret relationship with God and the secret relationship with ethics. And just to mention here things that are going to be in the details, which is to be careful in the way you talk, in the way you are, all the descriptions of and neither shall you defame one another, nor insult one another, and use bad words. Evil is all, and all the things which are very important in the details is just you have to avoid talking the way you can talk about and say bad things about, and also to spy on one another, which is all these elements that we have. It's coming to the interpersonal relationship, is master your tongue. Don't try to spy on the people. Just respect the dignity of the people. And there is something here which is important, is would you like to eat the flesh of your dead brother or your dead sister? And once again, is going here very far in the way you talk. And then the way you deal with your brothers and sisters is as if you were eating their flesh and the flesh of the dead brother or the dead. And what does it mean here? It means that be careful in ethical terms. What you are doing is, once again, as it is said at the beginning of the the verses and the surah is destroying everything. And Hassan Hathout, who is a medical doctor, was taking this by saying, look at these Muslims. And Sheikh Al-Qardawi took this in one of his books when he referred to this. He said, look at these Muslims, they are very strict about eating halal meat, and they want halal meat, and they don't care about eating the flesh of their dead brothers. In the way, so meaning they are very strict with rules, not so strict with ethics in the way we deal. And I think that it's just showing all these dimensions that we have to refer to when it comes to the way we have to deal, something which is in itself a challenge, which don't spy, and something that we find in the hadith, إِنَّ بَعْضَ الظَّنِّ إِثْمٍ. So don't spy and don't project onto your, what you have here is where is that here? Avoid most guesswork about one another, for behold, some of such guesswork is in itself a sin. And once again, not only it's important to avoid spying, but it's very important also to avoid guessing, and the guessing in the bad way, which is in the hadith is husn al-dhann, always, that you should struggle with your own self, and it's a jihad with your own self, trying to keep your judgment, to suspend your judgment, and always think about your brothers and sisters the best. So as long as, so look at what was said at the beginning. وَإِنْ جَاءَكُمْ فَاسِقٌ بِنَبَإٍ فَتَبَيَّنُوا. You have to check. But as long as you don't know, you haven't checked, what you should keep is husn al-dhann. As long, and there's something which is deep on this. Not only you have to avoid spying, trying to get the thing, you should, and then you keep the best opinion, you try to protect yourself, and knowing something which is the secret of Allah's will in anything which has to do with what the people are doing. As long as it's not visible, you have to avoid spying to know, and be convinced that if it's not known, this is Allah's will. Because Allah was Sattar. He covers. And as long as it is covered, you should not try to uncover, so sometimes you have to keep quiet. And there is an attitude on this, which is important, is the way you are educating people. You don't educate by exposing the people. Sometimes you educate by covering. And sometimes by knowing and covering, it's more educational than exposing. I always remember that sometimes when I knew that I was doing something wrong, and I was entering in the living room at home, and the only thing that was that I can see is in the eyes of my mother is just a silence, but she was looking at me. Nothing said, nothing uncovered, all known. Okay, I know. I felt, and that's it. So sometimes there is something here which is not to expose, is to let the people deal with their own reality between them and God, and know that what is protected is not for us to expose. Man satara mu'minan fi dunya, satarahu Allahu fi dunya wal akhirah. That the people who are protected in this life, God will protect them in this life and the hereafter. So there is something which has to do with ethics here, ethics. And it's important. Why? Because there is something that could have to do with our arrogance. When we know and we judge, we want to be right in our judgment. So we need to be also full of humility, even if we are right. Yes, you are right, but the fact that you keep it for yourself, and it's between the man or the woman with God, the fact that you don't say it, it's an act of humility. You know? to be right in his or her judgment and yet not being able to speak about it. So being right and silent is a jihad. Because we are proud. When we are right, we like it to be known. I knew it. So be right and be silent. Right with your heart, silent before human beings. And this is the way you are with God. This is ethics. It has nothing to do with the rules here. It has to do with the way sometimes you have to deal. It's a jihad in itself. It's not an easy way. And I will end here by, we come back here. We started with Allah, and then with the Prophet ﷺ, with your brothers, and then the community, come back to humanity. Ya ayyuhan nas. Inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha. Knowing that all these struggles, we have to do it within our community, and then we have to deal with others. And there is something here which is the secret of this, of mankind. The best among you has to do with his heart. Her heart is the way you are within, is the way you are. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. And akramakum indallahi atqakum is a universal message. It has nothing to do with color. It has to do with social status. It has nothing to do with all what is visible. It has to do with the secret that you know and Allah knows. And it's the starting of everything. It's the way you are with God, the way you are with the Prophet, and the way you are going to be with yourself. So it's in this that you should understand that the hierarchy between human beings is only based on the state of the heart and the relationship with this ethics and applied ethics that we are talking about. This is something which, once again, we come again, and then when he's saying this, you come to the last point. After 22 years, saying, قالت الأعراب آمنا قل لم تؤمنوا ولكن قولوا أسلمنا ولما يدخل الإيمان في قلوبكم. So you who are saying, we are believers because we practice, no, that's not true. You still have to struggle to make it what is visible enter in what is invisible. Meaning, the way you pray should be the way you are with God, with your heart. So there is a struggle. And for all of us, it means that it's an ongoing struggle. We are praying, we are fasting, but how much or how can we feel that all this is our heart, is in our heart? How much love do we have? How much connection do we have with God? This is something which is an ongoing struggle that is coming from our experience, the way we deal with our heart, and the parameter of all this is the way we behave. And the way we behave is not by going outside and to do solidarity work or to show that we are practicing. No. The way you talk, the way you listen, the way you judge, the way you are silent, the way you know and you keep quiet, the way you protect, details that are changing everything. And as you know, there is a famous saying that the devil is in the details. Wallahu a'lam wa ala wa ahkam.